I gave my stepmother an unforgettable Mother's Day gift that looked innocent at first, but watching her face change when she realized its devastating truth was the moment I knew everything in our family would never be the same. I presented my stepmother with an unforgettable Mother's Day present, then observed her expression when she understood its true significance. When Dad wed Cassandra, I was 11 years old. Mom had passed away 13 months earlier. Cancer that progressed more rapidly than doctors anticipated. One morning, she mentioned having a headache. 82 days afterward, I stood beside her grave, wearing a black outfit with price tags still attached. Dad waited precisely 1 year before introducing Cassandra to our home. She held a position at his investment company, managing client relationships. Flawless smile, golden hair that remained perfectly styled. The type of person who wore stilettos to casual neighborhood gatherings. "She brings joy back into my life," Dad said, his tone gentle yet decisive. "I need your effort, Emily." So I made the attempt. I assisted Cassandra with relocating, transporting containers of luxury footwear to the wardrobe where Mom's gardening attire once resided. I responded courteously when she reorganized our living space, substituting family photographs with contemporary artwork that enhanced the room's openness. I maintained composure when she converted Mom's produce garden into a Zen terrace because cultivating our own vegetables seemed outdated. For 3 years, I acted the part of the appreciative stepdaughter. I accompanied her to business functions wearing outfits she selected for me. I endured her acquaintances who praised how sophisticated I appeared at 14. I concealed my sorrow beneath excellent academic performance and fabricated cheerfulness. Dad failed to notice when my laughter disappeared, preoccupied with Cassandra's busy schedule and the new accounts she generated, distracted by their romantic getaways and exclusive wine society memberships. During this time, I slept with Mom's cardigan beneath my pillow until her scent faded away. Cassandra made efforts in her own manner. She purchased costly birthday presents, invariably items that suited her taste. She organized lavish dinner gatherings and presented me as our child to influential individuals who forgot my name. She established a university savings account for me, ensuring everyone acknowledged her benevolence. However, when I experienced my first menstrual cycle, internet searches guided me through the process. When nightmares about Mom's death haunted me, our family pet provided comfort. The final straw occurred during my second year of high school. I earned the leading role in the school production, the first activity that ignited my passion since Mom's passing. Opening night coincided with Cassandra's charity fundraiser. "Naturally, you must miss the performance," she declared without looking up from her device. "The Richardson family is bringing their son. He attends Princeton." "Professional connections, Emily." Dad began to protest, then halted when Cassandra touched his shoulder. "It's merely a secondary school play," he eventually stated. "Additional opportunities will arise." I retreated to my bedroom and retrieved the vintage jewelry container Mom had bequeathed to me. Inside lay her marriage ring, a strand of my infant hair, and a diary I had never dared to open. Too frightened of confronting her final reflections. That evening, through streaming tears, I read every page. Most contained expected content. Her aspirations for my future, treasured memories, guidance she would be unable to provide personally. But the final entry, written 2 weeks before her death, differed significantly. "If you are reading this, Emily, you must learn about the security deposit box. The key is attached inside this cover. What you discover there will transform everything. I deeply apologize." The key appeared small and silver with a bank's identifier etched into it. The following day, I skipped classes and visited First National. The manager recognized me immediately. Mom's relatives had maintained accounts there for generations. "Your mother predicted your eventual arrival," he mentioned, escorting me to the vault. The box contained a USB device, multiple document folders, and a letter addressed to me in Mom's penmanship. "My beloved Emily," it commenced. "By this time, Cassandra has likely integrated herself completely into your lives. I have been aware of her for years." I read the complete letter twice, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Mom had uncovered Dad's relationship with Cassandra 6 months prior to her medical diagnosis. She had employed a private investigator who recorded everything. Hotel invoices, text conversations, photographs of them together while Mom collected me from soccer practice. The investigator's documentation was thorough, covering several months. Photographs showed Dad and Cassandra entering accommodations in 3 separate cities. Screenshots of messages that nauseated me. "She is taking Emily to her grandmother's this weekend. Visit me. Can you envision when we no longer need to hide? Sometimes I wish she would simply vanish." That final message came from Dad. Sent 4 months before Mom became ill. I examined credit card records showing dinners at unfamiliar restaurants on evenings when Dad claimed to work overtime. Purchase receipts for jewelry that never reached Mom's dresser. A rental contract for a downtown apartment absent from our family documentation. Additional files revealed financial records demonstrating that Dad and Cassandra had systematically transferred money from Mom's family trust, funds intended for me, into international accounts. They had been orchestrating this for years, awaiting the perfect opportunity. Mom's family had established one of the city's premier investment companies across 3 generations. When she married Dad, he was merely an ambitious advisor with determination. She had brought him into the business, mentored his advancement, assisted his rise to partnership. The trust represented her family's inheritance, and I was destined to be its continuation. I discovered detailed spreadsheets monitoring millions redirected through shell entities, fabricated client portfolios, and manipulated investments. The funds moved through numerous countries before disappearing into anonymous accounts. Dad's signature appeared on every crucial document, Cassandra's on the majority. Most disturbing were medical records suggesting Mom's unexpected deterioration might not have been so unforeseen. Unusual test outcomes, peculiar prescriptions, toxicology analyses she had commissioned privately when suspicion arose. I began feeling unwell after our anniversary dinner, Mom wrote. Initially just fatigue, then progressively sicker. The physicians could not explain my condition. When I started monitoring patterns, I noticed these symptoms only occurred after meals that Thomas prepared exclusively for me. Laboratory reports analyzed hair specimens showing elevated concentrations of heavy metals consistent with prolonged poisoning. Results from tests on food samples from our residence, notes from consultations with 3 separate medical experts who all observed the unusual progression of her illness. I cannot prove anything, Mom wrote. And when you read this, it will not matter for me. But I could not leave you defenseless. The final page of her letter outlined her counter-strategy, a second confidential trust she had created in my name, the house and business I believed Dad controlled, technically mine upon reaching 18. Mom had modified her 2 weeks before dying. Collaborating with attorneys Dad never knew existed. I have ensured that what rightfully belongs to you remains yours, she wrote. The trustees will contact you automatically on your 18th birthday. But if you find this letter earlier, you can reach them using the information in the attached envelope. They await your readiness. I remained in the bank's private chamber for hours, processing everything. When I finally emerged, I had changed. The grief and confusion that had characterized me for 3 years had crystallized into something harder, something focused. I did not confront Dad immediately. I did not flee or contact authorities. I did something more terrifying. I became the ideal daughter. For the following 2 years, I performed flawlessly. I excelled academically, joined organizations Cassandra recommended, attended every tedious corporate function. I wore appropriate clothing, spoke correctly, and never allowed them to see what I knew. Evenings were spent meticulously documenting their ongoing schemes. Each time Dad mentioned a challenging client or complex investment strategy at dinner, I researched the involved companies, tracing money through their maze of false entities. I created personal spreadsheets, expanding on Mom's work. My bedroom became my headquarters. I installed a hidden safe behind my bookshelf where I stored copies of everything. I recorded conversations during family meals, business discussions they had when they assumed I was not listening. I photographed documents Dad brought home and left carelessly on his desk, trusting that his 16-year-old daughter would never comprehend their importance. 6 months after discovering Mom's letter, I felt prepared to contact her trustees. The envelope contained 3 business cards, a forensic accountant, a lawyer specializing in financial crimes, and a retired judge who had been Mom's father's closest friend. I met them at the judge's residence on a Saturday when I was supposedly at debate team practice. I had shared everything over the phone, but witnessing their faces as they reviewed the actual evidence was different. The accountant closed his eyes briefly when he saw the fraud's extent. The lawyer cursed under her breath. The judge looked at me with a mixture of sadness and cold fury. "Your mother was among the finest people I have ever known," he said. "What do you want to do, Emily?" I had spent months considering my options. I could have exposed everything immediately, sending Dad and Cassandra to prison. I could have escaped, waiting until 18 to claim my inheritance. I could have confronted them, forcing a painful reckoning. Instead, I chose the path Mom had started, methodical, precise justice. I want to learn everything, I told them, about the business, about finance and law, and how to manage a company. I want to be prepared when I reclaim it all. The judge nodded, unsurprised. "Your mother said you would say that. She left instructions for us if you chose this path." For the next 18 months, I lived a dual existence. At home and school, I was the perfect accomplished daughter that Cassandra could boast about at parties. But 3 evenings weekly, I slipped away to study groups and volunteer work that were actually intensive training sessions with my secret team. The forensic accountant taught me how to interpret financial statements, detect fraud, and understand the complex network of transactions that kept the family business operating. The lawyer educated me on corporate law, contracts, and the specific legal frameworks that would eventually allow me to seize control. The judge introduced me to his contacts in banking, investment, and regulatory bodies. People who had respected Mom and were disgusted by what had happened to her company. Meanwhile, I worked with Mom's lawyers, preparing everything: the trust, the evidence, the plan. I graduated high school at 16, a year early. Dad and Cassandra were delighted, their prodigy, heading to Yale early, with a full scholarship. What they did not know was that I had also been taking business and finance courses online, learning everything about Dad's company, about the accounts they thought were hidden. "We are so proud of you," Dad said at my small graduation party. "Just family and a few of their close friends. No one from my school, no one who really knew me." "You have exceeded all our expectations," Cassandra added, her arm around my shoulder for the photographer they had hired. "Yale early admission. The board is already excited about your future with a firm." I smiled and thanked them, knowing that in less than 2 years, I would own that board. The summer before college, Cassandra announced she wanted to adopt me legally. "You are my daughter in every way that matters," she said, touching my cheek during lunch at her favorite expensive restaurant. "Let us make it official before you go to college." I studied her face, searching for any sign of genuine emotion. There was a certain tension around her eyes, a calculation in the way she glanced at Dad before returning her gaze to me. This was not about love. It was about securing her position. An adopted daughter would strengthen her claim to the family business should anything happen to Dad. I smiled and hugged her, whispering that nothing would make me happier. "We should celebrate," Dad said, already signaling for the check. "Maybe a weekend in the Hamptons. We could invite the Prestons. Their son is at Harvard Law." "That sounds perfect," I replied, thinking of the file I had compiled on the Prestons' failing software company and the mysterious infusion of cash it had received from one of Dad's shell corporations last year. That night, I called an emergency meeting with my trustees. We gathered in the judge's bookline study after I told Dad and Cassandra I was spending the night with a friend to celebrate graduation. "They want me to sign adoption papers," I explained. "I need to know if that affects our plan." The lawyer spread documents across the mahogany table. "Actually, this could work in our favor. The adoption process requires financial disclosures. We will get an updated picture of their assets, and it changes nothing about your mother's trust." "That is ironclad." "How close are we?" I asked. The accountant adjusted his glasses. "We have documented 67% of the missing funds, traced them through 4 countries to accounts we can identify. It is more than enough for criminal charges." "And the evidence about your mother's illness?" the judge asked gently. This was the hardest part for me. The possibility that Dad had not just betrayed Mom, but actively poisoned her. The medical experts we had consulted could not definitively prove murder, but the pattern was suspicious enough for an investigation. "We keep that separate for now," I decided. One battle at a time. As I prepared to leave, the judge handed me a small wrapped package. "Your mother left this with specific instructions to be given to you when you were ready to move forward." Inside was a vintage Montblanc pen that had belonged to my grandfather. "She used this to sign her first major acquisition," the judge explained. "Said she wanted you to have it when you were ready to take back what is yours." I carried that pen with me everywhere after that night. A talisman, a promise. 2 weeks later, Mother's Day arrived. Cassandra had always made a big production of it. Expensive brunches, professional photographers to document her mother-daughter bond for social media. This year, she had planned a garden party for 30 of their closest friends. The adoption announcement would be the centerpiece. I spent the week before carefully preparing my gift, working late into the night in my room, compiling documents, organizing evidence, crafting the perfect presentation. The irony was not lost on me. This was the most thoughtful gift I had ever created for her. The morning of the party dawned sunny and mild. Perfect weather for Cassandra's carefully orchestrated event. The caterers arrived at 7, followed by florists, event planners, and a small army of staff, transforming our backyard into an elegant venue that looked nothing like the wild garden Mom had loved. I found Cassandra in her dressing room, surrounded by rejected outfit options. "What do you think?" she asked, holding up 2 nearly identical cream-colored dresses. "The Dior or the Chanel?" "The Chanel," I said, noticing how she immediately set aside the Dior I had selected. "I have something special for you," I told her, handing her an elegantly wrapped box with a silver bow. "Oh, you did not have to," she said, her surprise seeming almost genuine. We both knew I had never given her a Mother's Day gift before. "I wanted to for today's announcement." She set the box aside. "I will open it later during the party."
"More special that way."
"I would rather you open it now," I insisted. "It is personal." Something in my tone made her pause. She studied my face, then reached for the box. Inside was a custom-bound book. On the cover, embossed in gold, "A Daughter's Gratitude." "Oh, Emily," she breathed, clearly expecting a collection of sentimental photos and tributes. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The first page showed a picture of Mom, smiling from before she got sick. "What is this?" she asked, her voice tight. "Keep going," I said gently. It gets better. Page by page, the book told the story Mom had left me. Hotel receipts, bank statements, medical reports, each carefully annotated in my neat handwriting. I watched her face transform as she turned each page, confusion giving way to shock, then anger, then fear. By the time she reached the section on the diverted trust funds, her makeup had started to run from the sweat beading on her forehead. "This is absurd," she whispered, but kept turning pages, unable to stop. In the final section, details of the restructured trust, the legal proceedings already in motion, and the meeting scheduled tomorrow with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. "Those offshore accounts you and Dad set up," I said conversationally, perching on the edge of her vanity. "They are not as untraceable as you thought. Did you know that 17 countries have signed new banking transparency agreements in the last 5 years? Or that electronic fund transfers leave timestamps that can be matched to your cell phone's location data?" Her face drained of color. "Your father and I will fight this. You will be very interested in the terms I am offering," I finished, still smiling as the doorbell rang, announcing the first guests. "Much better than prison." She stood, knocking over her mimosa. "You ungrateful little..." "Careful," I whispered. "Your guests are watching, and I am still deciding whether to show them what is in Chapter 3. She glanced down at the book, still open to a page showing her text messages to Dad from the week Mom was hospitalized. Messages complaining about hospital visiting hours interfering with their dinner reservations. "What do you want?" she hissed, straightening her dress with shaking hands. "You're going to go downstairs and host your party. You're going to smile and laugh and be the perfect hostess. And tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, you and Dad will meet me at Judge Henderson's office to discuss terms for your continued freedom." Her eyes darted around the room, perhaps looking for a way out, finding none. "This is blackmail." "No," I corrected her. "This is justice. With a touch of mercy if you earn it." I moved toward the door. "You have 30 seconds to fix your makeup. People are waiting." The party lasted 3 excruciating hours. Cassandra maintained her composure through trembling hands and a fixed smile that never reached her eyes. I played the adoring daughter perfectly, toasting her influence on my life, watching her flinch at each double meaning only we understood. "Emily has been such a blessing," Cassandra told Mrs. Henderson, the judge's wife. "I could not love her more if she were my own blood. And Cassandra has taught me so much," I added, meeting her gaze steadily, "about loyalty, about consequences." Mrs. Henderson looked between us, sensing the undercurrent, but unable to place it. "Well, you are obviously wonderful for each other." Dad texted that he was running late from his golf game. Just as well. His gift was waiting in his office, an identical book with additional documents specific to his role in the fraud. The guests gradually departed as the afternoon waned, complimenting Cassandra on the lovely event and congratulating me on Yale. I stood beside her at the door, accepting hugs from women who smelled of expensive perfume and insecurity, shaking hands with men who had known my grandfather but could not quite remember my name. "Is everything all right with Cass?" one of Dad's partners asked me quietly. "She seems tense." "Oh, she is just emotional about the adoption," I explained. "Today means so much to her." After the last guest left, Cassandra disappeared upstairs. I found her 20 minutes later frantically packing a suitcase. "Going somewhere?" I asked from the doorway. She whirled around, a handful of jewelry clutched in her fist. "You cannot prove any of this. It is circumstantial. The FBI does not think so. Neither does the SEC. But feel free to run. They are expecting that. There is an agent parked at the end of our street. Has been for 3 days. This was a bluff. The authorities were not involved yet. That was part of the leverage in my negotiation strategy. But Cassandra did not know that. She sank onto the bed, her half-packed suitcase open beside her. "What happens now?" "Now we wait for Dad. Then we talk terms." Dad arrived an hour later, calling Cassandra's name as he entered. I met him in the foyer, his gift in my hands. "Where is Cass?" "How was the party?" he asked, loosening his tie. "She is upstairs, and I think you should open this first." I watched the same sequence of emotions cross his face as he paged through the evidence. Unlike Cassandra, he went completely silent, his lawyer's training kicking in, even in shock. When he finally looked up, his expression was unreadable. "Where did you get all this?" "Mom left it for me, along with instructions." Something like pain flickered across his features, quickly suppressed. "Emily, whatever you think you know, is documented in triplicate and stored in multiple secure locations. I finished for him, including evidence about Mom's health decline that suggests more than just financial crimes." His face went ashen at that. "You cannot possibly believe that I poisoned her." "I do not know. The evidence is inconclusive, but strong enough for an investigation if I choose to pursue it." He closed the book carefully, as if it might explode. "What do you want?" "The same thing I told your wife. 9 o'clock tomorrow. Judge Henderson's office. We will discuss how you can avoid prison." That evening, After the guests left, I found Cassandra sitting alone in the dark of Mom's former garden, surrounded by the sterile white furniture she had chosen to replace the wildflowers. "Why now?" she asked, not looking at me. "Why wait all this time?" I sat beside her, smoothing my dress. Mom taught me patience, and I needed to understand everything first. "What do you want?" I had rehearsed this moment for 2 years, imagining satisfaction, maybe even joy. Instead, looking at this woman who had helped destroy my mother, I felt hollow. Dad transfers control of the company to me through the original trust mechanism. You both resign publicly but continue as consultants under my supervision. The money you diverted returns to the trust. In exchange, I do not pursue criminal charges. She laughed bitterly. "You are 16. You cannot run a company." I am almost 17 with a team of Mom's trustees who have been waiting for this day, and I have been training for it half my life. Dad's heavy footsteps approached across the patio. Cassandra's fingers dug into the armrests. "He will never agree." I stood, straightening the necklace Mom had left me. "He already has. Check your phone." While we had been talking, Dad had found his own copy of my Mother's Day gift. His message to Cassandra was just 3 words. "She knows everything." Dad joined us on the patio, his face haggard in the fading light. "You did not have to do it this way," he said quietly. "You could have come to me directly." "Like Mom did?" I asked. "When she confronted you about the affair 4 years ago? Or when she questioned the trust disbursements? How did those direct conversations work out?" He had no answer for that. "The company is not just numbers on a spreadsheet," he tried instead. "It is relationships. Client trust. If you force us out, the damage could be already mitigated," I interrupted. "Mom's original team is ready to step in. Most of them never trusted you anyway. They stayed out of loyalty to her memory." Cassandra glared at him. "You said they were all loyal to you, that you had secured their support." "He lied," I told her. "Like he lied about the prenup you signed. The one with the infidelity clause that leaves you with nothing if you divorce." Her head snapped toward him. "What prenup?" "The one I have a copy of," I said, "along with evidence of your continued affair with Ryan Donahue from legal." "Did you really think those hotel charges would not show up in the expense audits?" The color drained from her face. Dad looked confused, then furious as understanding dawned. "You told me that was over," he growled. "It is," she insisted, but her eyes darted away from his. "Emily is manipulating you." "Actually, that is your specialty," I said, standing. "I prefer direct approaches." 9 o'clock tomorrow. Do not be late, and do not try to leave town. I have people watching the house. I left them on the patio, their angry whispers following me inside. In my room, I called Judge Henderson to confirm our meeting, then emailed the full dossier to my trustees with instructions to release it to authorities if I did not check in by noon the next day. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay awake listening to their muffled arguments down the hall, the occasional sound of something breaking, a door slamming. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a car start and drive away. By dawn, the house was silent. I dressed carefully for the meeting. A conservative suit Mom had bought me for my first academic competition, her pearl earrings, minimal makeup. Professional, serious, older than my years. When I came downstairs, I found Dad alone at the kitchen island, staring into a coffee cup, still wearing yesterday's clothes. "Where is Cassandra?" I asked, though I already suspected. "Gone," he said flatly. "Took her jewelry and her car, left her phone so she could not be tracked." I had anticipated this contingency. That complicates things, but does not change them. She is not the primary stakeholder anyway. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "You look like her," he said unexpectedly. "Your mother, when she was fighting for something." The comparison both warmed and pained me. "We should go." The judge does not like tardiness. The meeting was brief, but comprehensive. Dad, stripped of his usual confidence, signed every document placed before him. Power of attorney, transfer of voting rights, resignation letter. Judge Henderson guided him through each step, his voice neutral, but his eyes cold. "You understand that these terms are conditional on your cooperation with the financial recovery team. Any attempt to conceal assets or obstruct the process will trigger the criminal complaints we have prepared." Dad nodded mechanically. "And the company announcement will follow the script provided, citing family succession planning and a desire to honor Catherine's legacy as reasons for the transition." Another nod. "Sign here and here. Initial these pages." When it was done, Judge Henderson slid a final document across the table. "This stipulates that you will not contact Emily directly except through approved channels until she turns 18. All communication goes through my office or the trustees." Dad's head snapped up. "What?" "That is my daughter. You can sign it," I said quietly, "or I release the medical evidence." His hand shook as he signed the paper. When he set down the pen, Mom's Mont Blanc that I had brought specifically for this purpose, his shoulders slumped with a finality that made him look suddenly old. "Can I at least explain?" he asked, his voice barely audible. I have read all your explanations, I replied. In your emails to Cassandra, in the memos justifying the transfers, in the statement you prepared for the board last year evaluating me as a potential future figurehead with limited actual authority. I think I understand perfectly. Judge Henderson ended the meeting, informing Dad that a car was waiting to take him to a hotel. He would be permitted to return to the house next week to collect personal belongings under supervision. As Dad stood to leave, he paused beside my chair. Your mother would be proud, he said, and I could not tell if he meant it as a compliment or an accusation. I know, I answered simply. 2 months later, I sat at the head of the conference table in what had been Dad's office. The company transition had been announced as a family succession plan, celebrated with press releases about the youngest female CEO in the industry. Dad remained as a figurehead, controlled by ironclad contracts that monitored his every financial move. He had kept the house, his social standing, and avoided prison. In return, I received what was rightfully mine, plus his complete submission to quarterly reviews where I examined every aspect of his professional life. The trustees formed my executive team, guiding me through the countless decisions required to stabilize the company after years of Dad's manipulation. I deferred Yale for a year, focusing instead on practical business education at the firm. Cassandra resurfaced in Miami 3 weeks after she fled. The FBI picked her up trying to access one of the offshore accounts we had flagged. She spent 2 nights in jail before Dad's lawyers negotiated her release in exchange for her full cooperation. She returned to Connecticut under strict monitoring, living in a company-owned condo and working as a client liaison with severely limited authority. The prenup I had mentioned proved prophetic. Dad filed for divorce, citing abandonment and infidelity, leaving her with only what the separation agreement we had crafted allowed. She fought it initially, threatening to expose the company's fraud until my lawyers reminded her that she would be the first target of any investigation. It was not justice for Mom. Nothing could be. But it was the beginning of something she had wanted for me. Control of my own future, protection of the legacy she had built, accountability for those who had betrayed her. The search for definitive proof about Mom's illness continued quietly. I hired specialists to re-examine tissue samples the hospital had preserved, ordered new tests on items from her vanity that I had kept untouched, interviewed medical staff who had treated her. The results remained frustratingly inconclusive. Suspicious patterns, but no smoking gun. Dad maintained his innocence on that front, even in private meetings with his attorneys where he admitted to everything else. The cancer was real, he insisted. I never touched her medication, never altered her food. I wanted her gone, yes. I am guilty of wishing her dead, but not of making it happen. I did not know whether to believe him. Part of me needed him to be guilty of everything, a complete monster whose destruction I could pursue without reservation. Another part desperately wanted this one line to remain uncrossed, preserving some tiny fragment of the father I had once loved. The company flourished under new management. We unwound Dad's complicated schemes, recovered most of the diverted funds, rebuilt client relationships damaged by his shortcuts. I worked 16-hour days, sleeping on the office couch more often than at home. Home. The house no longer felt like one. I sold it 6 months after taking control, moving into a downtown apartment within walking distance of the office. Dad relocated to a smaller house in the suburbs, stripped of his country club memberships and most of his social circle, when the carefully worded but transparent company statement made it clear he had been forced out. Last week, I visited Mom's grave for the first time since reading her letter. I did what you asked, I told her, placing wildflowers against the stone. The company is safe. Your legacy is protected. I wish you could see it. As I turned to leave, I noticed a familiar figure watching from a distance. Cassandra, clutching a small bouquet of her own. Our eyes met across the cemetery. She did not approach, but nodded once before walking away. Some lessons take years to teach. Some gifts keep giving long after they are opened. Every Mother's Day since then, I send Cassandra the same thing, a single photograph of Mom smiling in her garden with a note that reads, "Thinking of you today." She never responds, but I know she understands. It is the only language we have left.